Hey guys, and welcome back to Betwixt the Books. I am here today with a very late arc review. I read the book on time. I just didn't make a video, which is fine. It's fine. We're making the video now. It's still coming out. I'm doing my best to try and talk about the arcs that I'm reading because I'm still reading. Like, the thing that's really funny for me is that I'm reading more than I have in like the last several years combined, at least like actual books. And I'm just not feeling good about sitting in front of the camera. In fact, I have Gretchen watching me right now to make me do the thing and give me moral support to do the thing so that hopefully this video actually comes out on time tomorrow. We'll see. Fingers crossed that everything goes good. But I am here still to talk about Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame by Neon Yang. This came out May 6th of this year. Would have made sense to make a review of this in May, because, again, that's when it came out. Would have also made sense to make a review of this last month in June, because it is technically a sapphic romantasy type thing. There is also some gender non-conforming stuff going on in here, non-binary stuff-ish going on in here. So it would have made sense to do it then, but we're doing it now because I have the ability to do it. So you're getting it now. If you have never heard of this before, it is a novella. I've been reading quite a few of these. Tor and Tor.com specifically, which is their imprint that does the like novella length stuff, has been one of my favorite publishers in the last several years all around. I pick up more books from them than any other publisher, I feel like. So when I saw this, I had to get it. It is Asian-based fantasy, which is something that I've been really enjoying, just like in the past couple of years overall, but just in general. So if you're a person who's liked things like She Who Became the Sun or The Poppy War or is it called The Tiger's Curse? Like there's several like Asian-based fantasy stories that have gained a little bit of notoriety over the past couple of years. You might be interested in picking this one up as well. But let me tell you a bit of the synopsis of the book itself, more than just the elevator pitch tags that made me interested in it. The book opens up giving us this story about the famed masked Guild Knight of Mithrandan, a vast empire. The Guild Knights are a faction in the military whose job specifically it is to hunt and kill dragons. Dragons throughout history have been known to attack villages, and so this specific group of warriors who are able to attune to a magic crystal that is built into specific weapons that lets them use almost like a fire magic against these dragons. It makes them a bit better at fighting dragons than your average person. And there is this one particular guild knight that is the masked guild knight who is more accomplished than any of the other guild knights, is well known and has like these legends around them. We go on to learn that this masked guild knight is a young woman named Yeva, who, when she was quite young, accidentally kills a baby dragon that comes into her home. That's how her family learns that she has inherited this magic that she's able to wield. Before her mother has a say in it, her father sends her off to train to become one of these guild knights. What you learn is that she's... I said mixed race. That's not entirely true. It's just more so her father is part of like an upper class that's from the north, and her mother is from a lower class that's from the south. That gives her some darker features, darker skin tone. So I'll treat her kind of like mixed race in this case. Other kids tease her and make fun of her for that. So in that, she's trying to avoid this bullying and this instant prejudice that she gets. She decides that she's just never going to take off her guild knight garb. And that creates this persona, right, of the masked guild knight, that people don't know what's underneath her, because as she ages, the people who did see her and know what she looks like and who she is either forget or have aged out or have died. And so now she just becomes this masked guild knight that no one actually knows her true identity. One day, her cousin, who works as like a diplomat, tells her that he's going to send her to this walled city that is right outside of their empire because they've heard tales that that city might be harboring a dragon. It's very near to where Yeva grew up, and Yeva knows that the people who live in this kingdom, rather than fearing dragons like most of the empire, actually worship them. And you get the opinion that the reason that she in particular is being sent there is that because out of all of the knights, she's the one who's going to be the most sympathetic to these people. As she arrives there, she gets sent to the castle and introduced to the girl queen, who goes by Suki. And Suki unfortunately suffers from a blood disorder where she gets very ill once a month to the point where she can't have visitors. She faints and passes out, is very weak. And so they start an interesting little romance while Yeva is doing her investigation to figure out whether or not there actually is a dragon in this kingdom. And then the plot goes from there. If you've watched Gretchen and my reviews of novellas in the past, you'll know that I'm generally more a fan of novellas than Gretchen is. She quite often feels like they needed more space and more time. Not always, but for the most part. And usually I'm less sensitive to that. I will say that for me, with this one, I did feel like I wanted more from it. I initially gave it 4 stars when I finished it, but as I've sat with it and the longer I think about it, the more that that has sort of ticked down to a 3.5. And I think one of my biggest reasons for that is that I did want more from it in a lot of areas. And while the story itself is fine, like there were pacing issues, there were characterization issues, and some other things which I'll get into more detail about that I feel like it's a good book. It's not a bad book. I just really wanted more from it, and I don't think that I can justify giving it a 4-star when I have this many things that I'm like, actually, I didn't really like this, and actually, I didn't really like that. So, do I think you should read it? Yes, probably. If it's interesting to you. If you are a person who likes queer representation, who likes Asian fantasy, who likes books about dragons, I definitely feel like it's like a good story, and I don't dislike having read it. But is it one that I'm going to be rushing to hand people or say that everybody has to read? No, probably not. So if you're interested in it, definitely pick it up. But I don't think that it's one that I'm going to recommend to people who like wouldn't normally pick up a book like this. One of the areas that I really felt like needed more time and space given to it was the romance between Suki and Yeva. Especially with romantasy being so big as it is right now. And with the fact that there are elements of the plot that are sort of hinged on the way that that relationship develops, I feel like I wanted more time seeing them come together. Again, this probably would have been helped with it being like a full-length novel if it had actually been given the time and space to it. But there were times when I felt like their relationship had like huge jumps in intimacy that didn't feel necessarily earned. And then there were certain elements of specifically the climax and the ending of the book that felt like they didn't make sense now that they are as close as they are. Specifically because of the twist. And the first thing that I said to Gretchen when I was talking about this was that I saw the twist coming like so far in advance that I didn't think it was actually a twist, but then the plot treated it the way that a twist would be treated, and I was like very confused. Gretchen and I obviously both have degrees in English and therefore have been trained in a way to view foreshadowing maybe differently than your average reader might. I do the same thing with films. Like, it's very common that I will be like, this is what's going to happen, and then that's what happens. For this one, though, I was surprised it was being treated as a twist because of how telegraphed it was. Like, I thought that this was just something that should have been known by this character or presumed or figured out, and it wasn't. And then I then felt weird reading this whole climax and the problems that came up because of it, because of the fact that I was like, oh, was this supposed to be a twist? Which I think is also problematic. I'm hoping that this is something that other people are going to feel as well, and it's not just a me problem. Like, I am reading it as not surprising, and then other people are very much surprised by that twist. But for me personally, I saw it coming a mile away and then was confused why it was being used as a twist in the plot. Related to that twist, the emotional arc of this book is very much in unlearning indoctrinated beliefs. Obviously, by being a guild knight, Yeva believes that dragons are harmful and evil and are always going to come and attack people, and it's part of her responsibility to protect people by killing these dragons, whether they are actively doing harm or not, because they have the potential to do harm. And then, as you would think, living in a city where everybody worships dragons instead of fearing them, the emotional arc that she's going through is realizing that perhaps not all dragons need to die. And this ties into that twist, and it ties into the whole climax of the book of her deciding what she's going to do with that information. And that was also tied into the romance that was going on. And I do personally feel like by tying it into the romance in the way that it was, it does a detriment to that emotional arc. Me personally, I don't feel like you need to be personally affected by a problem or see someone who you are close to be personally affected by a problem to understand that it might be wrong to do something. I think just seeing and interacting with people can do that. So the way that Eva has her mind opened to the possibility that maybe we shouldn't be killing dragons felt not as strong as it could have been based on the twist, the way the climax of the plot went on and all of that. And maybe that's part of the predictability of it all. Maybe I am just too empathetic of a person, because I don't believe that you necessarily need to be tied that closely to the problem in order to, once being confronted with a different view, to maybe reconsider and change your mind on something. I don't know. So if you are the type of person, like I think that like Gretchen and I are, you may also agree with me that it does a disservice to that emotional arc. The way that it's done in this book, it's kind of contrived and quite popular and done quite often, which isn't a problem in and of itself necessarily. Like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not as strong as it could be, which again is why it's like 3.5 and not 4 stars. It's one of those things where it's like, could have been better if done a little bit differently. It is what it is. It's not done poorly necessarily. It's just kind of expected, kind of what you would think would happen in a book like this. Again, very much by no means not a bad book overall. There were these couple of issues that I had. I did very much enjoy the representation in here. We have sapphic representation, obviously, because the women fall in love with each other. There is also some interesting things when it comes to gender, specifically when it comes to Yeva's gender, because she has spent so long as the masked guild knight. Most other people use non-gendered terms when talking to her, especially when she is presenting like in the full armor, because they don't actually know what gender she is. She herself uses she her pronouns to describe herself the whole time, but I did like the way that she had some discomfort in people perceiving her, especially without the gear. Like, she was very uncomfortable. She didn't want anybody to like see her. She would had like contraptions built to help her take on and off her armor rather than using like ladies in waiting to help her put everything on. There was also disability representation, because in that first fight when she was a child with a dragon, her hand was injured to the point where it is not functional super well, so that was there. It's not a huge part of the story, it just is there, and I really appreciated that, especially because she becomes this like mythic guild knight. Like, having this disability and like having less than a functional limb didn't stop her from being one of the best dragon knights in the whole country. So there's also that, if that's something that you really appreciate. Lady Suki has a chronic illness in that blood disease, so there's that representation as well, and that she's still the queen despite having something that literally disables her at least for a week every single month. So if you're looking for that sort of representation in ways that those characters just exist in a story and it's just part of their character and not part of the story, like not part of the plot to be fixed or solved, that's definitely in here, and I appreciate it for sure, because a lot of times these things get fixed by the romance in a story, and that just isn't the case here. There's no magic to fix them, nor should they be fixed. That's just part of their character. There were a handful of characterization things, specifically with some side characters, that I did feel were out of character for them later in the book, or at least how I had perceived them from earlier passages with them. So not all of the characterization was perfectly done, but again, 3.5. It's not a bad book. It's not the best book ever. Again, I do feel like if it's something that interests you, either the plot, the characters, the setting, there's definitely some stuff to enjoy in there, and it's short, so it's not like it's gonna be a 500-page slog for you to just be like, it was kind of a meh book. I do think that if you just want something sort of quick and light with some representation in there, it's worth picking up. I think that's all I have to say on this one. I do have a couple of arcs that I wanted to read and talk about this month. I can't guarantee that I'm going to get to all of them, or if I do read them all, that I will make videos on all of them, just because I've been struggling a little bit to do this for several years now. But I will do my best to talk about the ones that are interesting that I think people should get a look at. I have a couple of horror ones on the list for July, and I know that some folks are doing summer ween, I think is what they were calling it, like spooky summer stuff, so it might be worth talking about those. And Gretchen and I will be back to talk about a trans historical romance to check off one of our reading challenges for the year. So that will be the next video that we have for you, and we do have a unthemed reading roundtable coming this month as well, so you have those to look forward to coming up. If you want to hear me talk about gender non-conforming Asian fantasy, one of our most recent reading roundtables, not the most recent one, but one of them, I did talk about one, so I will link that up above as well, and you can hear me talk about that. And if not, I will talk to you again soon. Bye!